everyone, to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross, where we are your resource for education, connections, and collaborations to support you on your wellness journey. And I would like to start by thanking our sponsors, Angela Legh, White Sands Premier Travel, and Vibe. And for these sponsored appearances is what makes Mindful Mondays possible. So I want to welcome the incredible Angela. Is it Legh? Is that
It's
right?
Lee.
Legh?
Yeah, Angela Legh.
I apologize. Angela
It's
Legh.
okay.
She is a transformational storyteller who has turned her own challenges into powerful lessons in emotional resilience. She is the author of the enchanting Bella Santini Chronicles and creator of the impactful show Children's Life Matters. And she is here to share her journey through abuse and bullying, illuminating the importance of embracing our emotions for a healthier and more fulfilling life. So, Angela, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Laura. And I love your intro
Thank
because
you.
it's all about giving yourself grace and, allowing. And it's a good intro.
Thank you. And I have to have my dolphins in there. That's just
Oh,
me.
yeah. They're fun and fabulous.
Thank you. So, can you tell me a little bit about your journey through adversity and because it's incredibly inspiring. So, can you tell us a little bit about that journey and share with us what sparked your desire to transform your experiences into storytelling?
Wow, that's a big question.
Sorry.
I'm going to start with my father, who was an alcoholic. And, some people who drink can be lighthearted and fun, and then some other ones are delving into dark feelings, etc. Well, my father was rage when he was drinking. So, as a young child, I was exposed to a lot of anger, a lot of rage, and kind of made a decision as a youngster that I could not be that kind of person. So I decided that anger was something that I would not experience. And little did I know that that was my first foray into emotional repression. I was too young to know that. The outcome of that was that I ended up marrying a man who I thought was way better than my father because he didn't drink. But boy, did he get angry. And so I ended up walking on eggshells in that marriage, basically never sure what would set him off and being the one always at fault, that kind of
Wow. Yeah.
toxic environment. Um, I'd probably still be in that marriage if a wildfire did not destroy everything we owned back in 2017. That wildfire really threw me into kind of a dark night of the soul, a time of introspection, of asking those hard questions like, if the world can change overnight because of some circumstance like a wildfire, shouldn't I be living the life that I really want to instead of this life that is making me miserable? And so it took a while for me to work up the courage to choose myself. And that's exactly what it was. It was choosing myself and my needs first for the first time. And I ended up leaving that toxic marriage after it was after our 32nd year anniversary.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's why I say if it wasn't for the fire, I probably would not be where I am now.
It's kind of amazing how events like that can, change our lives or give us a different perspective. And like you said, that did take you a while because you had abuse, you said, when you were very young. But
Mhm.
then that was 32 years too. So yeah.
Yeah, and it was really, the fire kinda cracked me open to this choice of, do I choose what I want out of life, or do I just accept what I have, what I was given, what yeah, what I chose, but
Right.
maybe don't choose now? So, I, went on a healing journey and did a lot of travel, did a lot of personal development, and, um, ended up starting to write. And it's funny because when I was in that marriage, I told my former husband that, "I just have this feeling like I'm supposed to write something." And he looked at me and he said, "Who the hell are you to write something, be published?" And now I can look at him and say, "Well, I guess it's me because I have 12 books published." So I
Right.
guess it was me after all. Um, but yeah, that was just an aspect of him being intimidated by this desire, this feeling I had, and trying to keep me in place so that I don't show up him. And
Wow.
that was kind of, the story of my life, really, from my
Yeah.
father through my ex-husband, yeah. So, now what I do is teach people that emotions are energy, and energy needs to flow. So when we think we can repress an emotion, we can deny it, we can shove it down, we can escape it through, hundreds of different ways. We think we're getting away from that emotion, but it's still there because it gets stuck. So, emotional repression, I say, is the biggest lie that anyone ever taught us.
Yeah. I've had those conversations with people before, and recently, too, with a friend of mine. It's like, when you got so many things going on, for some reason we feel the need, we have to like keep trying to stuff it down and not
Mhm.
show and not let it out. But it really is
Never.
damaging. It's very damaging.
It's very damaging not only to your own wellness, but there are two ways that repressed emotions will express. Either they go inward and your cells are attacked and you get dis-ease,
Hmm.
or they go outward and you attack others. That's the only two ways that they
Right.
will express. Yeah.
Yeah. So emotional repression, that's a topic that many people struggle with. So what do you believe is the most common misconception about suppressing emotions?
So, one of the most repressive environments I've lived in was in England, where they put on the stiff upper lip and they deny their emotions. It's like societally ingrained in England. But you look at the population, and what do? They go to bars, they drink to numb those
Hmm.
feelings. And then there's alcoholism and violence and all the outcomes of numbing those feelings that is actually the expression of those feelings in a very negative way. So it's like people don't, when I say emotional repression, people don't necessarily understand what does that entail. It could be grabbing a glass of wine after work because you're so stressed from a heavy day of work.
Mhm.
That is avoiding the feeling of stress. So any behavior that you choose to avoid a feeling is emotional repression. So I'm going
Right.
to go shopping.
Yeah, as I say, it
I
doesn't always
don't
have to be alcohol or smoking. It
exactly.
it,
It
it
could
could be
be
shopping,
family.
or I'm gonna keep busy or do busy stuff because it's like you said, it's avoidance.
It is avoidance, yeah. And if we are given a tool to experience a painful feeling that makes it go faster, then we never have to repress. And that's what kids get in my books. They learn a tool. It's called focused attention. So the idea behind this is what you focus on is what you notice and how so when you put your attention on the feeling and you give it permission to flow, that feeling will dissipate within 2 minutes. But when you are in resistance to a feeling, I don't want to feel this way, this isn't fair, I hate that this happened, then every thought you have about that is making the feeling prolonged. So the reason why focused attention works is because you're disconnecting from the circumstances and putting all of your attention on the feeling. Where is it? How sharp is it? Is it like this ball of crumbly energy? Is it a sharp pain in your neck? Where is it located? So much attention on the feeling, it just flows and then you're done with it.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Because as I say, the more we, like you said, if you focus more on how you hate that this happened or this, I would think you're actually just kind of intensifying
Yes,
that
you're
emotion,
prolonging the
right?
exposure to that
Yeah,
feeling.
and then
Yeah,
making it twice as hard to get rid of or get over.
yeah. And you don't really need to get rid of a feeling if you allow it to flow. So it's funny. I met a man he was sitting outside the grocery store, and I had gone in, bought a sandwich, and brought it outside. And he was a homeless guy. He was um, really feeling down on himself.
Hmm.
And I started talking to him, and he told me about the time his father cut his mother's throat in front of him. He was 7 years old, and she
Wow.
died, and he witnessed that. And I told him the story of when my father tried to cut my mother's throat when I was about 7 years old. My mother did not die. She's still alive, thank God.
Yeah.
Um, but there was enough connection there of this shared experience. And I told him, look, it's not your fault. No one told you that the feelings you have are okay to have. And he started crying. He was like, no one's ever told me that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine it. And like you said, that's the thing is there was that connection,
Right.
and
It's a
there's
shared
probably others,
experience.
yeah, shared experience. There's others out there that sure are struggling, in different areas. And I don't know, to me personally, I would think that that connection or to know that someone else can relate to what you've been through makes a huge difference as
I
well.
think it does make a big difference. And also, I was an example of someone who had experienced that, but wasn't choosing a life of emotional escape. And so he could see that maybe there was another choice for him in there.
Yeah. Wow. How would you say did your experiences and abuse and bullying shape your understanding of emotional resilience? Because obviously
Mm.
you had to be very resilient. You're here, you're doing well. You've been through a lot.
Yeah. I would say that My biggest lesson is that hurt people hurt people. And when we see that bully as someone who perhaps experiences that kind of behavior at home, and they are only acting out of what they know, then gosh, maybe we can have compassion for that person instead of judgment.
Makes sense. Makes sense when you think about it. I think the first thing that people have a tendency to do, though, is to go to the judging
Oh, yeah.
and the hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other aspect is that when a bully says something to you and that triggers a reaction in you, it's likely bringing up something you've heard before. So if bully said, "Oh, Laura, you're a tomato," nobody's ever called you a tomato before. So
No.
you laugh, you say, whatever, you're nuts. So I'm not going to pay any attention to that. The fact that they use words that actually have an entry point into your soul. and though so, if someone called you, I'm going to say it, a bitch,
Mhm.
then that is a charged word that brings up a reaction. So
Right.
when we replace those charged words with words that mean nothing to us, then we can be non-reactive to that bully. Because what the bully wants is a reaction. They want to see that they're sharing their pain with someone
Mhm.
else in that way. So it's like, okay, you called me something. I'm going to say you called me a tomato. And I don't care if you called me a tomato. Big deal.
Wow. That takes quite a bit, though. I mean, and especially with children are pretty much impressionable, very impressionable.
Yes, they are.
I'm not saying adults aren't too, but I think bullying is more prevalent with children nowadays.
Mhm.
So,
And it and
what
it's
tips would you give them to try and help, fight that?
I would say take a breath and think, okay, so what if I am that? If they call you the worst thing that they can think of, and you can say, okay, so maybe I am, then you've taken all the charge out of what they're doing and you've taken your power back. So it's really about accepting that this person is projecting their inner pain onto you. It doesn't belong to you. You can give it back.
So,
Mm.
essentially, not reacting like they
Yeah,
want you to.
exactly. It's about understanding that just because someone says something about you, that doesn't mean anything about you necessarily. It means a lot about who they are. And that is very well explained in the Talmud, which says, "We do not see the world as it is, we see it as we are." So when someone is seeing me as something, think insert bad word here.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Someone calls me that, I know it has nothing to do with me. It's a projection of who they are. And having that kind of understanding of the energies that are at play in these kind of interactions really frees the person, the receiver, to say, whatever.
Yeah. I And I can see that too, because I remember a friend's mom giving me advice. When you you make someone mad on the road and they tell you you're number one, rather than getting all upset and react, if you just smile and wave, it just normally it may make them madder, but it doesn't make you, because they didn't get the reaction that they wanted. But I think it takes a lot to kind of have that presence of mind to not react, because a lot of us are
Yeah.
very reactive. So
And there's an organization called 6seconds.org.
okay.
And what they're all about is the emotional intelligence to pause that 6 seconds before you respond.
So
And
yeah,
that's all it can take. So,
yeah, I don't know that many of us even wait 6 seconds. Doesn't sound like long, but normally when we feel like we're attacked, we react normally quickly or at the spur of the moment.
yeah. And that reaction is really about our need to be liked and our need to be accepted.
Yeah,
But
it's
isn't it?
hurtful. It's hurtful when you have, when you feel like you didn't do nothing, you don't know why someone's attacking you. So
Yeah. But when you can let go of it's not about me and see it as a projection of their internal turmoil, then there is no reason to have a reaction.
yeah, I like that. That it makes perfect sense too when you think about it.
Mhm.
And that 6 seconds.
Yeah, and I learned that it started with my father and
Uh-huh.
then moved on through my former husband. I just was able to figure that out over the last 50 years. So,
Just a little bit of time. Just a
yeah,
little bit of
just
time. But we all get there. Well, I we have a lot more to discuss, but I know we need to take a break from a word from our sponsors. But I know we're going to come back and discuss even more, because you have a very important show, Children's Life Matters, as
Mhm.
well, in your book. And so we have a lot more to talk. So hang on, and we will be right back.
Relief for PTSD, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and many other ailments. Introducing Vibe, the world's only pocket PEMF device. You place in your pocket while cooking, cleaning, relaxing, watching TV, sitting at your computer, reading, or walking. Self-contained standalone device. No drugs. No other phone or Bluetooth connections required. No monthly subscription fees. No apps to download. No boson. The future of medicine is in the frequencies. Come join the revolution.
Hey, hey, we got soul. Oh yeah, we got soul.
So Angela, you have been through this pretty much in your childhood, but also as an adult. But your work focuses on children.
Yeah.
So, is that how Children's Lives Matters came about? How did that come about?
I knew that it's like my soul's mission is to empower children. And I I decided that because most of the information that can be found in my books is the kind of stuff you might hear from Bruce Lipton, or you might hear from Joe Dispenza, or one of the other highly conscious leaders. And the idea of opening children up to higher levels of consciousness so that they don't like get that piled up
Mhm.
of,
Right.
of perspectives and pain that, you know, causes us as adults to go running to therapists. So it's kind of my upstream investment of really saying, look, we can give the tools and techniques to these kids so that they don't have to be emotionally triggered for the rest of their life.
Right. So when you're and in your storytelling and stuff, so do you work with like parents too to help them with this?
Well, so in my books, I realized that the kids would grab onto the information because kids are much closer to their soul. They don't have those layers of societal expectations and parental expectations and school expectations all piled on them,
Hmm.
like an adult has. And so they're able to absorb the lessons fairly easily. But their parents, who were raised in a society that thought emotional repression is the way to go, then they're not equipped to provide the environment for their child to be expressive with their emotions. So with my books, I made in the back of the book, there's a parent's guide. Like, these are the themes in the book, and this is one way of looking at it. You might find it helpful. And so I, then that kind of morphed into having this show that, so Children's Lives Matter is not a kids show. It's a show to empower parents to raise emotionally healthy kids.
I love that. Yeah. Well, it's everybody always needs a little help, and it's a lot of, I would say, people that maybe experience that themselves, if they've never learned how to deal with it,
Exactly.
then they could wind up passing it on, and they're not maybe equipped, or they don't have the knowledge that they need to
And
stop
it
the cycle.
absolutely. And it's that cycle of generational trauma that is passed down. Because when you think about how did your parents deal with emotions, it was repression and or suppression, which, is another what I consider a negative way to deal with an emotion. They didn't model for us positive emotional expression. And they just learned from their parents, who learned from their parents. And, how many generations do we have to go back until we could find when emotional expression was like, okay?
Yeah, so it's always different, because a lot of times if you did try or whatever, maybe they're not sure, but they'll, tell you too sensitive, you got to get a tougher skin,
Oh,
but
I heard that so much when I was a child. You're too sensitive. I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe that's a superpower.
yeah, it is actually. I've actually learned that is a superpower. There's a reason we are, and it's okay, because I was told that often myself too. It,
Yeah,
it's just who I was, you know.
exactly. And that, to me, being, because I'm actually clairsentient, which means I can feel the feelings of others. They don't have to be in the same city. I can feel
Mhm.
across the world. And it took me a lifetime to get to the place where I can say, okay, I know I'm feeling this really heavy energy, but it's not mine, and I can let it go.
Yeah, and I would think that would be another challenge, because there's so many people out there that maybe don't even understand
Exactly.
that energy, or that, and when they don't, then they
And
look at
I
you
was
like
one
you're
of them.
odd, or you get criticized.
Yeah. And so what happens is you go into this deep well of depression or despair or loneliness or whatever it is that you're experiencing, when if you understand that you're able to feel because of this sensitivity, this other person's energy, you can decide to send the energy back to them. It's not your job to work on their energy, period.
Right. Can you describe maybe a pivotal moment in your life when you realized the importance of expressing those emotions rather than bottling them up?
So I met through Mind Valley a healer, I'll say, who helped me face a lifetime of repressed emotions. And she was an energy worker. So what we would be on a Zoom meeting and she'd be like, okay, we're going in, we're going to feel this energy. And I'm like, it hurts. I don't want to feel that. No. And she would be like, no, you have to feel it a little bit more. And I think that was really the pivotal moment for me to realize that unless I face those feelings, there will never be a moment for me where I'm free.
Yeah. I have met another lady that wrote a book, You Have to Feel It to Heal It.
Yeah.
There's a lot of truth to that.
There's a lot of truth to that. And yes, you might need the help of someone else to kind of walk you through feeling that, especially if you had a traumatic childhood, because there's a lot of energies that are kind of in play when you have a traumatic childhood. You can't tell the parent that what they're doing to you makes you feel bad. That's not okay for you to say that.
It
So
should be. You
it
should be
should
able to
be.
have an open
Exactly.
dialogue and conversation, but yeah.
So there is one repression, and then it might be another level of repression, of repressing the memories of what happened. And there can be so many layers of this emotional repression associated with childhood trauma that it doesn't feel safe to even look at it. So, getting a psychologist to help you through it, or an energy healer, is even better, because emotions are energy. So thinking about it with your mind is only going to get you so far.
True. That is very true.
Yeah.
And that can always just get in the way also.
Yeah.
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 So how can parents and educators foster an environment that encourages open and emotional expression, especially with their
Mm.
children?
And I think it's really understanding that there's negative expression of emotion and positive expression of emotion. And emotion itself is neutral, it's only energy. So we think of anger, or we think of deep sadness as bad emotions we don't want to feel. But they are energy and information. And when we can allow the feeling of those emotions, and we choose to express them in a way that helps humanity or our family, then that is a positive expression of emotion. So rage can be very destructive, or it can build things. When someone takes rage and says, I don't want that to happen ever again, and builds a movement, that is a positive expression of rage. When someone takes rage and looks at the cancer cells in their own body and they say, I'm not going to allow you to take over my health. I'm not going to allow you. I am angry and I am going to make this stop. You setting forth shifts within your own environment, cellular environment that can change things. My friend Donnie Epstein says, would you rather die or be known as a bitch? And when he first said that to me, I was like, I'll die, thanks.
I would have took the other. I'm like, I'm okay because I can't control what other people think.
Well, yeah, we get there, but I was in my people pleasing space,
Yeah.
and so yeah, and now I'm like, heck yeah, I'll be a bitch. I don't care, you know. So it's something to think about. What he says is that unless you can muster the energy within your own body to take control of what your cells are doing, then, and acceptance. Oh, I have cancer. I'm going to accept it. That's not going to work. So you have to be the warrior for yourself.
Yeah, I'm a little more fighter than that. I've met a lot of people that are like, nope. They may say I'm diagnosed with something. It's like I don't subscribe to that. I was like, nope, we can fix this. It's a mindset.
Their mindset has a lot to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah. But you've written powerful stories in your Bella Santinini. I don't know why I have trouble with that word, but Santinini Chronicles.
Yeah.
With the storytelling and the fantasy play, it's a role helping individuals confront and process their emotions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's about understanding that we're all magical and we all have within us gifts that we bring to the world. But if we get caught up in the energy of emotional repression, or if we get caught up in the he did this to me victim energy, then we're not in a space to bring our gifts to the world in a way that can be transformative. So when we can say, okay, yeah, those things happened to me and it brought me to where I am so that I could do what I do,
Right.
then we are empowering ourselves to bring transformation in a way that is empowered. Yeah, I did an interview of Donnie just a little while ago, and he was saying so many the wounded healer archetype is very big in personal development. So the wounded healer archetype, I experienced this and I'm going to teach you what I learned from it so that you don't have to experience this. And that was how I started promoting my books. Yeah, if I had read those when I was 10 years old, I would have made a lot different choices. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem is a wounded healer cannot heal someone else's wounds. They have to heal their own first. So once I was able to say, okay, I'm not enough, but my soul is, and give it over to my soul, then the energy shifts and I'm able to bring transformation, not from a place of wounded warrior, but from a place of an embodied soul who can bring information.
Yeah, it is a good point. It's just like self-care or mindfulness. We always like to take care of others or a lot of us put other people first. But the truth is, unless you do that for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you're not really any good to anyone else.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it always starts with you.
Exactly.
And I always say experience has a lot to do. You've obviously gone through it. You can always share things that, worked for you. It may work for someone else and it may not. But
mm-hmm.
like you said, if they don't heal themselves or, figure it out themselves first, then it doesn't work very well.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's like, okay, I learned these tools. And I'm very happy to share the tools I learned with the world, the perspectives, the way of seeing things that help us not be reactive. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm being the wounded healer. It only means that I acknowledge that this happened and I am mining it for transformation.
And speaking of tools, so what tools or techniques have you found most effective in managing your own emotions, especially after experiencing trauma?
Yeah. Really facing those feelings has been a huge tool for me. And the focused attention tool that I teach in my books to kids is a very, it's like so simple and yet very, very powerful. So that has been a huge boon in my life, but also um, just learning to allow and accept and surrender to what is.
Yeah, it's amazing. I found that too. Sometimes it seems to be the most simple things that
Oh,
can help us. It's like we always want to make it seem so huge, but it really can be the simplest things that can help make that change.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that one little shift that it's the statement from the Talmud where we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. The one shift I took with that was to apply it to the people criticizing us in our
Mhm.
life. And that has made a huge difference in how people see that criticism and judgment of themselves. So you're right. It is that just that one little tweak that makes it kind of, I don't know, it makes a difference.
Yeah, it seems like we always look for some huge monumental change, or has to be some big thing, but it really doesn't.
It doesn't, no.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to um, revisit your childhood trauma in order to heal it. You simply have to choose to A, experience those emotions and allow them, and then or express them in a way that, so art, music, writing, running, there are many different ways. A punching bag is a wonderful positive way to express anger.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you if you could share like a specific exercise or practice that can help our audience begin to dismantle their own emotional repression.
Yeah, it's just like understanding that there are positive ways to interact with the world in a way that your emotions are not triggering something in someone else.
So, how can one differentiate between healthy emotional processing and dwelling on
Mhm.
it?
So, dwelling on it is like when you fall into the rabbit hole of that emotion. And I've spent ages in rabbit holes, so I know what it's like. Um, you're wallowing in that emotion and you're victim to that emotion. Healthy processing is to acknowledge I have this emotion. I'm going to allow it. I might choose to express it in some way that is helpful to humanity or myself or my family. But what I will not do is allow it to take over who I am.
Yeah. And that's an important part too, is
Yeah.
not letting that take over.
Yeah. And you think about the angry man that, that you've known in your life, or the angry woman, even just it's like they've taken on that archetype of being, and they don't have to.
You did a lot of traveling in your introspection and your journey. Did
Yeah.
the nature what you were encountering as you were traveling, did any of that play a role in your healing?
Absolutely. So nature is very healing. Um, trees. If you're feeling stressed, go hug a tree, because like if you give that tree a good 10 minutes of your time, you're going to come away feeling a lot better. There are pheromones that trees put out that totally shift how you're feeling. And so when I lived in England, my favorite activity was to go hiking in the forests. And it was truly a healing environment, but it was also is England. So it was like there was so much fairy energy in those forests. I felt so inspired to write my books. I would tell my friends as we're hiking, I can feel the fairies here, but I can't see them. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I remember as a kid when I spent first grade in Germany, and we used to go on all the Volksmarches and go through the forest and have them the big leaves and stuff. I always just thought it was fun to hike through, or to be out
Yeah,
there and
it's
see
kind
all
of
the different
magical.
things. Yeah. So it can really help your creativity then too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. And if I have a bad day, if it's not snowing outside here, I will go into the forest and give myself a good hour of just, being in nature, and shifts everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I have found is too that just kind of puts me at peace is being out in nature. I know it's not everybody's thing, but it's a time where you can just kind of like be quiet and listen and
Mhm.
observe,
Yeah,
what's around when you're in nature, not in cities, big cities and stuff. That's a little harder to do. That's just a
right.
lot of
A city
clutter.
park is a small bit of nature, but if that's all you have, that's the best you can do. But just like breathing in and listening to the birds, or looking at the beauty around you, is it's balm for your soul. It really is.
Yeah. You have a YouTube channel, Angela.
Yeah, I do.
I know most of us do nowadays. So your YouTube channel, is that mostly just for the Children's Lives Matters, or do you also share stories and stuff on there as well?
It's both. So I have different playlists. One is the Bella Santini Chronicles, and so I've started doing prescription videos. So it's like, hey, if your child has anxiety, read this chapter to them because it'll help them through it. And so that playlist has those kind of videos. There's a Children's Lives Matter playlist, which is I've started, rather than saving the full show, I'm doing clips and then sending them to E360 TV to see the full show if they want. Um, and we did a Dr. John Gray interview on divorce and how to help your kids survive divorce. That's a very impactful clip in that Children's Lives Matter list.
I would
But
imagine.
yeah, and then I have some other kids' stories in there.
Wow, it's amazing. So, what is the best time for them? When does your show, Children's Life Matters?
It's on Tuesdays at noon Mountain Time. So yeah, so
Nice.
that
Now
would be
it's on
11,
E360.
11 Pacific.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's on E360 TV under Thriving Women Network. So as you're scrolling through E360 TV, you see all these shows. And then there's this line of silver boxes. That's Thriving Women Network, and Children's Lives Matter is the first show in that line.
Nice. It's kind of like your silver lining.
Exactly.
So we have a few minutes left. What message do you want our audience to take away regarding the power of embracing their emotions and telling their own stories?
I'm going to return to my first comment, which was about your show opening, because that giving yourself grace, not beating yourself up because you didn't make the choice to express your emotions in a positive way, you didn't know. Give yourself grace because you can make different choices now that you know, but you can't change the past. So
You can't, but you can learn from it.
you can learn from it. Yeah, you can use it as fuel for something else, but it's really you learned a lot of new things today, and maybe you'll implement one or two things and you'll find that your life is a little bit easier because of it. But if you fall back into old behavior, it's okay. And you could try again. So, yeah, give yourself grace.
Yeah. And if you're struggling with it, we have Angela's website, QR code up there, or you can definitely tune into her YouTube channel because as she has so generously shared with us, that she has been through it. Well, let's just say she's been through it. So she can relate to, the struggles that others are going through. But
And not only that, but there's also Laura Cross who can help you through things. So it's, there's those of us who have come to understand that our pain brings us wisdom. Then, we're here to uplift you, but we're here to uplift each other and work together and collaborate, because that's how the world's going to change. It's not one person doing something that's going to change the world.
nope, together we can do a lot more. I think that's
Yeah.
a similarity you and I both have is, we've been through the people pleasing phase and doing this. We've learned a little something along the way.
We have. Yeah.
I decided to make that change. But yeah, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey with us. Not very many people talk about those things. And I think sometimes that's the problem is that people
Yeah.
don't talk about it. Again, you're talking about the emotional repressions. People just keep it all bottled up inside and thinking they have to, but
But
you
you
really
don't.
don't have to.
Mm-mm. And when you decide to let that bottle open, all of a sudden there's freedom because you don't have to keep that lid on it all the time. So, yeah.
No, I would imagine once you did, you probably felt a lot a lot lighter. Didn't feel like you were
Oh, yeah.
didn't have so much weight on your shoulders.
Yeah, and it was hard to face all of those deeply embedded feelings that I did not express as a child. But oh my gosh, yeah, the breathing room is amazing once you do it. Yeah.
And you do me. And by the way, I love your purple hair. It's one of my other
Oh,
favorite
thank you.
colors. It's pretty. It's one of my favorite colors. But I want to thank you. We are out of time for today, but I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with everyone. So,
Thank you, Laura. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. And I know that you understand everything I'm talking about because of what you've experienced. So it's really lovely to chat with someone who truly gets it.
yeah, thank you. And I love being able to see people that are helping make a difference in children's lives. And like you said, children's
Mhm.
lives do matter. So
You
I would
do.
definitely encourage any of you that are going through those struggles to reach out to Angela, tune into her show, subscribe to her YouTube channel, because you're not alone. And
You are not
that's the
alone.
most important thing. We don't want you to know, we want you to know you're not alone.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you next time on Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. Have a wonderful week.